welcome to today's lecture. This is Blessed Elvis. So today we are going to discuss how to factorize the given polynomial functions. So in the part 1 of the previous video, we discussed how we can find the remainders using the polynomials of the given divisors. However, in this video we will discuss how to factorize the polynomials where you are not given a divisor. It will be luck that you are also given a divisor. You can also be given a divisor, but most likely you are not given a divisor. We will see different methods we can use for us to handle such kind of expressions. So let's discuss that. So when it comes to understanding how to factorize the polynomials, we first have to understand that for us to answer this question, we need to have a divisor. However, in this expression, you are given only a dividend without a divisor. So it's now your job for you to find the divisor. So let's say you have been given an expression x raised to power 3 plus 3x squared minus 4. So you will just be given such a polynomial and then be asked how to factorize, or rather you will just be asked to factorize this. So the first step for us is to find a divisor. So a divisor is simply found by trials. So in this case we have different kinds of values. You can have positive or negative 1, positive or negative 2, positive or negative 3, positive or negative 4, positive or negative of any number that you can think of. So this trial method is what we use for us to find a factor. So a factor is a value which, when you replace one of these values in the given polynomial, gives you 0. If you replace such a value and then it gives you 0, it means that that value is a factor. Okay, so let's say in the given expression we replace with, let's assume that the value of x in this case is positive 1. Let's replace that. So in the given expression we are going to replace wherever there is x with positive 1. We are just trying. So in this case we have positive 1 squared and then minus 4. Then here we have positive 1. So 1 raised to power 3, it's simply 1, and then positive multiplied by positive, it's simply positive. So positive here raised to power 2, it's 1. 1 multiplied by 3 here, it's simply 3. Then minus 4 multiplied by 1, it's simply 4. Then 1 plus 4 is simply 4. And then we have minus 4 here. So 4 minus 4, it's 0. Okay, it's 0. So since this value of x here as given as 0, it implies that x equals to 1 is a factor. Now let's say we had replaced with negative 1. Okay, let me just wrap this so that we can have the space here. So let's say we had replaced with negative 1. So we are going to have negative 1 raised to power 3 plus 3, and then negative 1 squared minus 4, and then negative 1 here. So in this case, negative 1 raised to power 3 is negative 1. Then negative 1 raised to power 2 is positive 1. Then positive 1 multiplied by 3 is positive 3. Then negative multiplied by negative, it's positive. Then 4 multiplied by 1, it's simply 4. So here we have negative 1 added to 3, it's simply positive 2. Then positive 2 will be added to this 4 here, so which gives positive 6. So since this is not given 0, it implies that x equals to negative 1 is not a factor. So you just keep on trying these values here. Whichever gives you the value of 0, that value is a factor. Okay, that's how we use this trial value, or rather this trial method, for us to find a divisor. Okay, so let's look at more examples. Let's say we have x power 3 and then minus 5x squared plus 9x minus 5. So let's say by trial, so let's write by trial by trial, okay, let x equals to 1. So we are just trying. So by trial, let x equals to 1. So where there is x in this expression, in this polynomial rather, we are going to replace with what? With positive 1. So let's do that. So when we replace where there is x with positive 1, we are going to have 1 raised to power 3 minus 5, and then 1 squared here plus 9. Here we are going to have 1, then minus 5. So 1 raised to power 3 is simply 1. Then 1 raised to power 2 is simply 1. Then 1 multiplied by 5, it's 5 here. Then plus 9 multiplied by 1, it's simply 9. And then we have negative 5. Then 1 subtract 5, we are going to have negative 4. And then positive 9. Then minus 5. So negative 4 added to 9 is simply positive 5. So we are going to have, let me just write from here, we are going to have 5, then minus 5, which is here. So 5 minus 5 is 0. So in this case, according to what we have just discussed, this implies that x equals to 1 is a factor. Okay, so x equals to 1 is a factor. Now remember, writing like this is the same as x minus 1 equals to 0, because this negative 1, when it comes to this side, it's going to be positive 1. So this is just the same thing here. Okay, so in this case, our x power 3 minus 5x squared plus 9x minus 5 has x minus 1 as a factor, since we have simply proved that x minus 1 is given as 0 whenever we replace in here. So then x minus 1 is also a factor. So how is this going to help us? Remember, in the previous video in part 1, we had discussed different methods we can use for us to find the remainders. So we are going to use synthetic method in this video for us to factorize. Okay, so in this case, for us to use the synthetic method, we first have to solve the divisor according to the discussion we had in the previous video of the polynomials of part 1. So we are going to have x minus 1 equals to 0, and then when we take this negative 1 to the other side, we are going to have what? We are going to have 0 plus 1, and then 0 added to 1, it's what? It's simply 1. So here we are going to have positive 1 here. Then here you simply have to write the coefficients of x values. So the coefficient of x raised to power 3 is simply the value which is in front of x. So the value which is in front of x here is simply 1. The value which is in front of x here is negative 5. The value which is in front of x here is positive 9. The value which is in front of here, rather the constant number, is simply negative 5. So according to synthetic method as discussed, you just simply drop this value here, which is 1. Then you multiply this one, multiplied by 1 there, we are going to have what? 1. Then negative 5 added to 1, we are going to have what? Negative 4. Then 1 multiplied by negative 4, we are going to have negative 4. Then 9 subtract 4, we are going to have 5. Then 1 multiplied by 5 here, we are going to have positive 5. And then negative 5 added to 5, we are going to have 0. So according to the synthetic method, the value which you have here is what? Is your remainder. However, in this case, we are not discussing the remainder, but we are looking for what? We are looking for the factors. So in this case, we are simply going to consider these values now. We are going to omit this. This is only important when you are finding the remainder. For the remainder, 0 is the answer. But since we are factorizing this, we simply focus on the first 3 values. So remember, the 3 values we have is 1, negative 4, and also 5. Okay, so for us to find this value here, we have to form this into a quadratic equation. So if you remember, a quadratic equation is of the form where you have ax squared plus bx plus c. So let's express this in this manner. So in this case then, this one here will be our a, so in this case it will be 1x squared, and then this one here will be our b, so it's going to be negative 4x, and then this one here is going to be our c, so it's going to be plus 5. So we have formed this one here, which is x squared minus 4x, then plus what? Plus 5. So this one here is our quadratic equation. So remember, we also have one factor, which is x minus 1. So the main point of factorizing this is finding the factors. When you find the three factors, then it means that you have factorized the given polynomial function. So we have x squared minus 4x plus 5 as our quadratic equation. So you can go ahead and find the value of the factors that we can have from this quadratic equation here. You have to use the factorization method that we are familiar with, the one that we were using during our secondary school. So in this case, our product, sum, and factors. So the product is simply the value of the x squared coefficient multiplied with the constant value, which is 5. So here we have 1. So 1 multiplied by 5 is simply 5. So our product here is 5. Then our sum is going to be the value of the x coefficient, which is negative 4. So we have to think of the values which we can multiply for us to have positive 5, and then when we subtract or rather add the same values, we are going to have negative 4. So what factors do you think can be that? The values where we can multiply for us to have positive 5, and then when we add we have negative 4. What values can be those? Okay, so there are no values. Here this does not have the factors. There are no values you can multiply for you to have positive 5, and then you add the same values for you to have negative 4. However, if you use other methods such as the formula method and also the square method, you are going to find the values here, which will be in form of fractions. So in this case, our main point is for us to factorize this. So since that cannot be factorized here, since this cannot be factorized here, I am just going to conclude to say x squared minus 4x plus 5 and also x minus 1 are our factors. So this means that we have factorized. However, if you factorize this, or rather not factorize, if you use other methods here, which of course you are allowed, you will find the values. When you use the formula method or you use the square method, you are going to find the fractions here. If you find the fractions, then those will be your factors. Okay, of course, let me just focus on another example. Obviously, we are going to find the values of the factors. So let's say you have x. So you may even go ahead and use those methods that I have mentioned for you to try out if at all you are going to have the factors. So after you find the factors, then those will be your values of the factors. It means you have factorized completely. Even in that case, we have factorized completely, because when you use the factorization method, it's not given us. However, it's not restricted that you only use the factorization method. You can even use other methods for you to find the values. Okay, so here, let's say, or rather, let me move this. Let's say, so for this one, we first have to find the divisor. So the divisor, let's say you replace these values. Let's say where x equals to 3, rather negative 3. Let's try this if it's going to give us 0. So in this case then, we're going to have negative 3 here raised to power 3 added to 3 here, then negative 3 raised to power 2, and then negative 6 here minus 3 here, and then negative 18. So what's negative 3 raised to power 3? It's negative 27. And then negative 2 raised to power, rather negative 3 raised to power 2, it's 9 rather. 9 multiplied by 3 here, we are going to have positive 27. and then negative multiplied by negative, it's positive here. 3 multiplied by 6, it's simply 18, and then we have negative 18. So we know that negative 27 added to 27 is 0, and then 18 minus 18 is also 0. So in this case, it implies that x equals to negative 3 is what? Is a factor, since it's given as 0. Okay, so let me just wrap here so that we can have more space. So this implies that x equals to negative 3 is a factor. So this can as well be written as x plus 3. You simply have to take this value to the left side. And we know that since it's negative 3, when it comes to the left side, it's going to be positive x plus 3. Okay, so in this case then, let's use now the synthetic method for us to simplify this. So we know that x is negative 3. Since we have already solved, I'm just going to use negative 3 here, and then when it comes to writing the values here, you simply write the coefficients of x values. So the coefficient of x power 3, it's simply 1, and then here it's 3, here it's negative 6, and then here it's negative 18. So this one we just drop like the way it is, and then negative 3 multiplied by 1 here, we're going to have negative 3, and then 3 multiplied by negative 3, we are going to have 0, rather adding 3 plus 3, rather 3 plus negative 3, it's 0, and then negative 3 here multiplied by 0, it's simply 0, and then negative 6 added to 0, it's negative 6, and then negative 3 multiplied by negative 6 here, we are going to have positive 18. So let's see, rewrite on another board. It's a lot of things there. So we had this, and then here we had negative 3. We have already manipulated this, so I will just rewrite it. So here we had 1, here we had 3, here we had negative 3, here we had 0, okay, here we had negative 6, and here we had 0, and here we had negative 6, here we had negative 18, and here we had 18. Okay, so we know that negative 18 plus 18 is 0 here. So this one at the last part here is our remainder as discussed in the previous video. But in this video, we are only focusing on this part here, the first 3 terms, because these ones are the ones that will form the quadratic equation that we are looking for. So in this case then, let's take this only. So these terms we have are 0, 1, 0, and negative 6. So remember, a quadratic equation is in the form, okay, let me just rub this. So a quadratic equation is of the form x squared plus bx plus c. So since we have 1, 0, and negative 6, in this case then, where there is a, we are going to replace with 1, so it's going to be x squared plus, where there is b, we are going to replace with 0, so it's 0x, and then where there is constancy, we are going to replace with negative 6. So in this case, we have x squared plus 0x minus 6. So this is our quadratic equation. So we have x squared plus 0x minus 6. So this is one of our factor, and the other factor that we had, remember, is x plus 3. So in this case, let's solve this quadratically if we can simplify this further. So in this case then, omitting 0 here, it's the same as we have x squared minus 6. Okay, and then here we have x and positive 3. So how can we further simplify this? So here, since we have 2 terms only with a constant number, if you have 2 terms and a constant number, what you simply do here is separate these. So in this case, we have how many x? 2. So x here and x here. And then here we have negative sign. So it means we multiply different signs, that is positive and negative. Then which 2 numbers can we multiply for us to have 6 here? Okay, it's 2 and the 3. Then this is how you can simply factorize such kind of an expression. So we have x plus 3. So these are our factors. So it means that in this case we have factorized completely. So let's try one last example so that you can get a clear insight of whatever is happening here. So let's say you have x power 3 minus 3x squared minus 9x minus 5. So in this case, go ahead and try using the trial method for you to find the divisor. So let's say we say x equals to -1. Let's try that. So if we put where there is x with -1, it's going to be this. So we are just replacing where there are x values with -1. So we have that. So -1 raised to power 3 is -1. -1 here raised to power 2 it's +1. Then +1 multiplied by -3 here, it's going to be -3. Then we have negative multiplied by negative, it's positive. Then 9 multiplied by 1, it's 9. Then we have -5. So here, -1 added to -3, it's -4. Okay, then we have +9, then -5. So -4 added to 9, it's +5. Then +5 subtract 5 here, it's going to be 0. So this implies that x equals to -1 is a factor since it has given us 0. So in this case then, we are going to have x raised to power 3 minus 3x squared minus 9x minus 5. And then we have x equals to -1 as our factor. Of course, we know by now that we can write this as x +1 equals to 0. But instead of adding equals to 0, we are just going to write this. Because when this -1 goes to the left side, it's going to be positive. That's how this is coming in. So let's use the synthetic method to find the values of this one. So here, we know that the value of the divisor here is giving us -1. So here we are going to have -1, and then we are going to write the coefficients of x values. So here it simply means we have 1. So in this case, oh no. Okay, let me just write. Sorry for the disturbance. So here we had x power 3 minus 3x squared, and then minus 9x minus 5, where we had the divisor equal to -1, which of course we can write as x plus 1. So in this case, let's use the synthetic method to find the values. So here we have 1, -3, here we have 9, and here we have -5. So in this case, this is just going to drop, and then we have 1 here. So -1 multiplied by +1 here, we are going to have -1. Then -3 minus 1 is -4. So -4 multiplied by -1 here, we are going to have 4. Then 4 added to 9, it's going to be what? It's going to be 13. Then 13 multiplied by -1 there, it's going to be -13. Then -13 added to -5, we're going to have what? -18. So this one here is our remainder, but our main focus here is this one here. Okay, let me just revise this one if I had not made any mistake here. So we had this, we had that. Oh, sorry, here it's -9. It has to be -9 there. So in this case, then let me just write this. So here we had 4. So this one is -9. So -9 added to 4, we are going to have what? -5. Then -5 multiplied by -1, we are going to have 5 here. Then -5 added to +5, it's 0. Okay. So this one is our remainder, but we only get the first three values. That is 1, -4, and -5. So let's do that. So 1, -4, -5. These are our values. So we are going to form a quadratic equation from this. So remember, this one is just 1, so it's just going to be x squared, then minus 4x, then minus 5. So this is the quadratic equation that we have formed. So let's solve this quadratically, rather using factorization method. So let's find the product, the sum, and the factors. So the product here is negative 5. The coefficient of x squared, which is 1, multiplied by the constant, which is negative 5, we are going to have negative 5. Then the sum here is negative 4. So what values can we multiply for us to have negative 5, and when you add you have negative 4? Okay, in this case it's negative 5 and positive 1. So let's replace these values. So we are going to have x squared minus 5x, and then added to plus x minus 5. So in this case, these values are the ones that are here. I've just added the constant, or rather the variables, because here we can't have 1x. That's why I've just written x. So here we know that what's common here and what's common here. So what's common here is what? X. And then inside there we are just remaining with x minus 5. When we remove x to both sides here, this is what's going to remain. Then plus, we know there is nothing that is common between x and 5, so we just simply write 1, and then here we have x minus 5. So since this and that are the same, we are simply going to just write x minus 5, and then we write what's outside the brackets, that's x plus 1. And then remember, at first we had found the divisor to be x plus 1. Okay, so these are our factors. So it means that you have factorized completely. Hopefully that you have understood. Make sure that you go through again so that you understand much better. Thanks once again, guys, for staying this far. Please like, subscribe, share, and turn on the notification button so that you are updated whenever I upload a new video. Stay blessed.